within Gigya, the organization pursue a variety of our target market companies. And not until about 9 months ago did we make a shift where we actually defined people to go after a certain market segment versus another market segment, corporate accounts versus enterprise accounts. But it took a long time to get there. In fact, it took about 2 years until we were able to get to that point where there was delineation in our product and the service, where an enterprise organization was looking for a particular service and technology solution, whereas the corporate world, say your SMB or more of your mid-market business, is perfectly happy with a more standard type solution. Now, scaling the growth of these organizations, it's really looking at now, all right, this thing's gotten bigger, who's buying our stuff, what vertical are they in? How much money do these companies make every year? What is the rev range? That's our sweet spot. Is the enterprise our sweet spot? Is the mid-market our sweet spot? Is the SMB our sweet spot? Is it some combination thereof? That's just going to shake out in some period of, say, 12 to 18 months after you've got some sales traction. As far as people, you're going to hire skill sets into each one of these categories, depending upon, again, what market you're pursuing.
And Mitch, if you look at your experience with Horowitz, or maybe take another example, you know, you're the first salesperson and you go there and you think, I've got every company in America that I could potentially sell to. What do you see as being the right approach to defining how broad a market that first person should go after? Should they be looking at one vertical market and trying to penetrate that and figure out the messaging and the positioning, and then moving on to another one? Should they approach multiple markets at the same time?
So I think there are a couple ways to answer that, but I'll talk specifically to Horowitz. So when we started Horowitz, it's open source. We give all the software away for free. And it's our third open source company. And so we're driving traffic to the website, monetizing it that way. And we assumed that we would be able to use inside salespeople, and it's a lower cost of sale. We'd be able to use inside salespeople, so we hired one. Someone we already knew. Someone who had all the skills, those 5 things that David talked about. And we realized after 90 days, that was not going to be the model. So we had to shift our mindset, and we had to shift then our financial model, our go-to-market strategy, and it is much more of a traditional enterprise sales plan. And as a result, we had to look at what do we need in the type of people, and where do we want to put them. So we wanted to have pockets, because as you're a young company, it's hard for me to transfer knowledge out from Palo Alto to New York to London. If we don't have our story baked in Palo Alto, we can talk to each other. It's just the minute that you start transferring stuff out, the message gets diluted. It's harder for the people in the field. Think of some movie where there was some guy dances with wolves, the one guy in the reservation by himself with a gun. That's kind of what your first salesperson might be in a remote outpost. So thinking about how you're going to, your go-to-market motion, and based on your business, are we looking at a broad play? We were looking at, still are, those companies that are earlier in the adoption curve. Whether it's in telco, whether it's in energy, whether it's in financial services, and it's a platform play. If we were an application, it would be probably dictated, that strategy would be dictated differently. So I think understanding your business, your play in the market, how it fits into everything else, will give you a guide on how specialized do we want to go to market.
Gio, when you look at that again, the portfolio companies and CEOs within those organizations, do you find those people are normally wanting somebody to spray the gun everywhere and to hit whichever target moves, and what advice do you give them?
Usually if they're ready to hire a salesperson, they've been reactive. The company has been reactive to customer inquiries. So I guess the good news is, you know, I haven't had one of the founder CEOs say, just need someone, and I just want them to go out there and get a bunch of accounts. Not spray the gun. I think they're more concerned about the reactivity, especially moreover on, not to discount just a pure sales transaction, but even a strategic partnership. Like, it could be very dangerous to just react and engage into a partnership with a customer, and they're dictating the terms, right? And so, so I haven't had that happen yet. I hope not. That would be bad.
And we've got about 5 minutes left, and we'll open it up for Q&A. Maybe 3 guys that are sitting in those sales leadership positions now. Obviously, hiring a salesperson is different than hiring an engineer. Do you think the sales interview process is different? Who did it best in your career, or how do you assess those opportunities to give these people an insight into maybe what they should be thinking about so that they can meet your requirements during the interview process? David?
Yeah, so I love panels. I think interview panels work really well. If you want to have a great culture, have engineers interview salespeople. Then if they don't like the salesperson, that it was part of their decision. So I really like panels. I think that when you're an early stage company, every single person has a massive impact on your culture. And if you bring the wrong person in and they bring bad cultural dynamics, it's almost like a cancer that is so hard to eradicate out of the system. And so the best way to mitigate risk on that is to have a couple of people interview the candidates. I do think as a CEO, you should interview every single person that comes through your door. I couldn't imagine not interviewing the first 100 to 200 people that I hired as a CEO. So I'd start with a panel. Backdoor references work great. They work a lot better than when you ask the candidate for a reference. And compare notes. Make sure you have agreement ahead of time on what the competencies are you're looking for. Behavioral-based interviewing is a lot more efficient than just experience-based interviewing. But if you do that and you've got smart people on your team, you're gonna make good hires. When you make a bad hire, though, it's like anything else failing fast. Get rid of them quickly. Do it respectfully, but move them out quickly. One of my co-founders, CTO, has a great expression, which is, look, if there's somebody on your team who's not doing a good job, that's their fault. But as soon as you're aware that they're not doing a good job and you don't do something about it, it's your fault. And don't let it be your fault. Get in the middle of it quickly. Try to iterate. Try to fix it. Give them a lot of quick coaching moments. But if you can't and it doesn't work, it's the best thing for them, the best thing for the organization. Move them out quickly and move on.
Yourself, Alan?
Yeah, so much of what David said is spot on. I don't have much to add other than to, as you're thinking about bringing the sales staff on, the passion's good, interviewing them is good, getting an understanding of how they pitch themselves to you is key. When you're listening to this person try to sell themselves to you, you got to remember that they're going to be selling a product to your market. And I always think about, as I'm interviewing candidates, that, hey, if you can't articulate to me why you're the best thing in the world, while at the same rate telling me some of the challenges that you have or weaknesses that you may have, that the whole what are your strengths and weaknesses question, the ability, though, for them to sell themselves to you is important. So if you're sold, if they sell themselves to you, the parallel then of them selling your product to your market, whatever that may be, if you're going to go figure that out, is really something that you need to buy into.
And Mitch, just a slightly different question to you, because you've been through being that first salesperson multiple times. How do you, as that potential for a sales hire, assess the opportunities that the founders and senior team members would have for you?
How do I assess them as a company? So there are a few things I look at in any company, and generally I've joined companies at Series A. They're just about to close it, or they just closed it. And I'll look at a couple things. Quality of the team. It could be 5 people, 10 people. First-time CEO isn't bad, as long as the first-time CEO acknowledges and understands and appreciates that he or she is a first-time CEO. I'll look at the quality of the other team. Have they been through this before? There's already enough momentum against any of us in this room with startup that we're going to be successful. The company's going to be successful. So people who have been through it once before helps take some risk off the table. I look at the money, too. Who's the money behind it? Firm like Andreessen, Tier A, that's good money. They see better deals than a Tier B or C VC. So there's smart people, they've done it before, there's good money behind it, and then I look at how big is the market opportunity. The bigger the market opportunity, the greater the opportunity for us as a small company to create some sort of penetration point that we can exploit. The smaller the market opportunity, there are going to be a lot of people fighting over that little piece of pie, and that's hard.
Okay, so we'll open it up for questions now. Why don't we start at the front?
Hi, so great panel. So when I first came in with a preconception, it was the first salesperson should be an evangelist, someone maybe like Steve Jobs. But from what I've heard, at least the first answer given by the panel tonight, it was someone who listens, who validates against the market. So my question to you is, would your answer still hold if your product was, for example, a blue ocean product, and or if your company is not, it's just a regular startup, it doesn't have any